Originalmente concebido como uma crítica ao consumismo, o roteiro escrito por Don Mancini passou pelas mãos de vários nomes em Hollywood, mas sem despertar muito interesse.
I wanted to write something, a dark satire about how marketing and advertising affected children. My dad worked in advertising, so I became very aware at a very young age how cynical the advertising business is.
Até que o produtor David Kirshner se interessou pelo projeto e convidou Tom Holland, que anos antes havia dirigido o clássico A Hora do Espanto.
É preciso ter fé para isso funcionar.
Para levar a história de Chucky aos cinemas em Brinquedo Assassino.
Oi, eu sou Chucky. Você é seu amigo até o fim. Vamos brincar?
And I had read a book called The Victorian Dollhouse Murders because I was fascinated by dolls. They scared me. I said to the woman that was running development for me at the time that I would love to do something with dolls. And she said that there was a script about 6 months ago called Blood Buddy, written by a young, talented writer, but it had not sold.
Like any horror fan, I had seen The Talking Tina, Twilight Zone.
Meu nome é Tina Tagarela e eu vou matar você.
And I was a fan of that killer doll concept, but it occurred to me that that had never been done in such a way where you could treat the doll as a full-fledged character.
Baleado pela polícia, o serial killer Charles Lee Ray usa magia voodoo para transferir sua alma para um boneco, momentos antes de morrer. Mas o brinquedo vai parar nas mãos do pequeno Andy, que se vê em meio a uma onda de assassinatos misteriosos. E agora, ele precisa convencer a todos de que Chucky está vivo, antes que se torne a próxima vítima do boneco assassino.
Oi, eu sou o Chucky. Quer brincar?
Além da figura icônica do boneco Chucky, Brinquedo Assassino se destacou por criar toda uma mitologia em torno do assassino Charles Lee Ray. Mas o conceito original desenvolvido pelo criador Don Mancini era bem diferente do que vimos nas telas.
My title for the original script first was Batteries Not Included. Then my agent said, well, we got to change the title because Steven Spielberg is developing a movie called Batteries Not Included. So then we changed it to Blood Buddy. In my original script, a doll is actually a sort of supernatural manifestation of the boy's id. So the doll is specifically going out and striking out against the people that this kid feels this unexpressed rage toward. One of the features of the dolls that didn't make it to the final film is that they have synthetic blood in them, so that if you play with the doll too roughly, the latex skin will break and then it will start to bleed, and then you have to go out and buy Band-Aids. In a rite of brotherhood, the little boy cuts his thumb and the doll's thumb and mixes their blood together, and it's after that that the doll comes to life.
Andy, com quem está falando?
Com o Chucky.
I felt that there needed to be more of a backstory with something malevolent that would possess this doll to be so evil, and that was the soul of the serial killer. And the history was that he was the Lakeshore Strangler.
Fundamentally, the biggest changes was really the addition of voodoo.
Tom Holland felt that the character of Charles Lee Ray had a fascination with voodoo, and that at the moment of death, he would pass his soul into this doll.
Chucky goes to his voodoo instructor. And I just thought, well, that's a whole other kind of magic that's going on in this movie. So it's like, well, if he has a voodoo doll of this guy, why can't he make voodoo dolls of all the other people he wants to kill? For that matter, as a serial killer, why not make voodoo dolls of all your victims? And it's probably, I don't know, maybe an occupational hazard. Probably best not to think about it too much, but anyway, I find it kind of hilarious.
O Chucky está vivo e matou o Ed Caputo.
E a escolha do elenco que daria vida aos personagens foi o primeiro passo para transformar o novo roteiro em realidade.
We had to find the mother, and we interviewed quite a few people. Catherine came in, and Tom was very excited about her, and I thought she was adorable and cute and wholesome, and she read for the part, and she was excellent.
The script for Child's Play came to me through my agent, and it was very emotional. There were even more scenes between the mother and son, and it was a very rich backstory of how I was a single mother, what happened to my husband, why my son is traumatized, prone to fantasy, so that's partly why we don't believe him when he talks about the doll.
This is the best blood in the business. It's called, he calls it real blood, R-E-E-L, and I'm not kidding. They use it in all the movies.
In terms of my acting, I would substitute for Chucky a snake, like I hate snakes. I would just make myself afraid by thinking it was a snake under the sofa.
Isso parece mentira!
Onde arranjou isso?
O Chucky me mordeu.
Ah, pelo amor de Deus.
What attracted me to Child's Play is what attracts everybody, which is, it's every child's nightmare. The doll that comes to life, that comes from, of all people, Brad Dourif, who's actually a wonderful guy.
I did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I played a crazy person. And that's sort of the way people saw me. And it was Tom Holland who said, there's this character who's going to be eventually a doll. Do you want to do it? And I said, sure.
O que você acha? O seu feitiço funciona?
All I had to do was be charming.
Tom Holland was pro rehearsal.
I got you!
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! You think you can fuck with me?
But the rehearsal went great because I was acting out Chucky as the doll.
He would be the doll. He was Chucky.
Andy, stop her. I'm your friend to the end, remember?
Esse é o fim, amigo.
Mas o filme ainda enfrentava um longo processo de testes até encontrar Andy Barclay, o garotinho inocente que se tornaria o principal alvo de Chucky.
And then from that point, we had to find a little boy, and it's difficult to find a little kid that can really kind of go through what this film was about to ask of he and his family.
I got the audition for Child's Play. They brought me back for a callback, and I had to do the line.
Ele disse que a tia Meg era uma safada e que ela recebeu o que merecia.
And I wasn't comfortable saying that. So when it got to that part in the reading, I said, I'm sorry, I can't remember the next line. I don't remember it. I said, and they gave me the line. They said, you remember, try it again, start over. And when I got to that line, I was like, look, I'm having a really hard time remembering this. I can't remember it. And I said, okay, look, we'll start over from the beginning and see how it goes. And it comes over, and it got to that line, and I broke down. I said, I'm sorry, I knew the line, I just couldn't say it in front of you. I couldn't get myself to say it.
And I didn't want to say bitch in front of my mother.
And I think they were so convinced that I had really forgotten the lines. They say, hey, this kid could act. He fooled all of us, let's give him the job.
Ready? And action.
Alex Vincent was very mature for his age. David Kirshner was concerned that we'd get Chucky on the set and how Alex would react to it.
They took me into this room. They showed me that I met the 9 puppeteers, or 7 or 9 puppeteers that operated him. And I thought it was the coolest thing.
We were able to, show him how Chucky worked, behind the scenes. We pulled up his shirt and we showed him, the mechanisms, and we showed the puppeteer working. And he was great from the, he never looked at it and was frightened of it. He was a great kid to work with, and he had no problems.
I think the most popular question that I've been asked my whole life is if I was afraid making the movie. And I always say, when they said cut, he stopped trying to kill me. So I had nothing to be afraid of.
O Chucky é boneco. Ele é feito de plástico e pano.
Com o elenco humano definido, o desafio seguinte era projetar, construir e operar o boneco assassino. Essa responsabilidade ficou nas mãos de um talentoso criador de monstros que já havia trabalhado com 2 grandes ícones do terror.
I had just finished Nightmare on Elm Street 3, I think. And there was an animatronic head in that I had done. Again, it was just had just some simple cables that, moved Freddy's eyelids and his brows and cheeks and mouth and stuff like that, and that was it.
Ai, meu Deus.
There really wasn't any training for Child's Play. Animatronics was very young. It was in an infancy stage. There'd only been a few shows that even used animatronics. And the word animatronics comes from Walt Disney, from their work on the amusement parks, the robots. And we just took that and started using it in film.
Say goodbye, Chucky.
We just had nothing to go, oh, it'll be like this, or oh, we'll build it like that, like this one show that we did before. So it was kind of frightening at first to start from ground zero and build up from there.
The look of Chucky, this physical characteristic, I wrote that in a lot of detail.
Red hair, blue eyes, freckles, stripy shirt, red shoes.
All of that could describe a million different things. Now, David is a very talented artist and had created a line of dolls.
I did a drawing of the good guy doll and then another version of the malevolent Chucky. Kevin took that element and built Chucky from it.
He used to bring a clay model of Chucky's head in to show Tom Holland, David Kirshner, and everybody was there. And I had to present the Chucky head, and it was made out of this stuff called Roma clay, and it's green and dark and kind of dull.
So the sculpture then becomes what the skin will eventually be, which means you have to make a mold of that face. And when you have a negative mold of that, that's what you put the fiberglass in. And that, of course, if you're following the process, gives you a hard plastic fiberglass core. You put the mechanisms in this fiberglass skin.
Oi, eu gosto que me abracem.
The eyes do exactly what our eyes do. And with the lids, we can bring his brows down in the middle, or up a real sad sort of look.
Mas para realmente dar uma personalidade a Chucky, o design do rosto e da cabeça eram fundamentais.
So there's 3 people that just work Chucky's face. There's one puppeteer that just does the eyes. His job is to blink them, move them left and right, up and down, all that stuff, and that's it. Then you've got a guy that does the brows and the cheeks. You have another guy that just does the mouth. So he's doing the jaw with a mechanism that goes on his head.
Maggie. Yeah, Aunt Maggie. They put an L-shaped bracket in the jaw, so we can do that movement.
It's probably one of the most difficult things because Steve's got to coordinate jaw movement with lip movement to get him to pronounce A-E-I-O-U and all the vowels. I-O-U.
And then he moves the lips with little joysticks with his fingers.
Did I get you wet?
Yeah.
How about a sneeze?
I like that.
Ready? Ready?
Sleepy.
Gesundheit.
There was a kind of a developmental stage of, it's a doll at first, and then it kind of became progressively a bit more human. But I think what that does is psychologically as an audience, you start to believe that it's a bit more alive.
The doll slowly begins to change. It becomes more human. So that the skin quality had to change. It had to go from shiny plastic, toy-like, into more fleshy looking, more human. It had to have little moles and freckles on it. His eyes got deeper.
The eyes went from that sweet kind of sparkling blue to almost this translucent blue. And Kevin came up with that.
Brad has great piercing blue eyes, so we wanted to replicate that. We even talked about putting beard shadow on him, but we decided against that, grow a mustache or something, but we opted not to do that.
Boneco feio.
Não mexe, velho.
It follows the line of thinking that we teach the special makeup effects students. So if you can give life to this piece of rubber, the impression of life is there.
Para atender aos diversos tipos de movimentos de Chucky, foram criados 9 bonecos animatrônicos diferentes.
We had a servo puppet, and what I mean by that is it's little tiny motors that people use in radio-controlled hobby cars or boats or planes. We take those little motors and we put them inside, the body. Today, if we're building any kind of animatronic character and it has a flaw in it, you know that the digital guy can come back later and fix it. Back in the 80s, there was nothing like that. So everything had to be perfect because it couldn't be fixed by CGI. Then we had a all-cable Chucky, bicycle cabled, so that, with joysticks are connected to, cables that go to elbows and everything like that. It was completely cable from head to toe. A rod puppet Chucky. One guy that held the body, he supported the doll as well. So he did the head and the body. And he had the 2 arm guys. So he was like a half puppet.
I am amazed in looking at it. what we were able to accomplish with very simple, rudimentary filmmaking techniques. There's a scene where Chucky's walking down a hall, and what you don't see is that there's a dolly that's being pushed as the camera's on him as he's looking back and forth across this hall. And it worked incredibly well.
We also had a screaming, kicking, self-contained, flailing Chucky. And we put a drill motor inside of his body, and that would move his legs. Basically like a screaming little child having a fit on the floor. That's how that one worked.
Apesar da complexa estrutura criada para dar vida a Chucky, algumas cenas exigiam mais do que o animatrônico podia oferecer. Por isso, a produção contou com o trabalho do ator Ed Gale, que tem pouco mais de 1 metro de altura, para interpretar o boneco em alguns takes.
And so he did the rest, and he said, "Could you do me a favor and run? Run over there and back." And I ran back to him, and he looked at everybody, and everybody said, "Fine with me," and he goes, "You got the job." And I didn't even know what job it was. And then he told me that it was a movie called Child's Play, and it's about Chucky the Killer Doll.
Now, if you were going to use a little person as an actor in a costume for certain shots, then you have to do a life cast of that actor and then take all of your physical attributes of what the outer character is and make a costume.
Several times we used Ed Gale. He's about 10 inches taller than Chucky. We would come to the shop and he would study the doll because we decided if he just moved fluently, we could not mimic that. We used him in scenes like when Chucky gets caught on fire, he runs around. It's a 30% bigger stage, so Ed was about 30% bigger than Chucky, so they literally built an entire living room stage 30% larger.
Okay. All right, you're out. Stop.
I burnt 3 times. I burnt in the fireplace, cut, set me on fire. I came out of the fireplace and spun, cut, and then I'm on fire walking over toward the sofa, and then cut, and they had the shaking dummy burning to death.
Dispondo de um orçamento de $9 milhões, Brinquedo Assassino arrecadou mais de 44 milhões nas bilheterias mundiais. E com as ótimas avaliações de crítica e público, o filme se tornou um clássico do terror, colocando Chucky entre os grandes nomes do slasher como Freddy Krueger e Jason. E mais do que isso, viabilizou o início de uma grande franquia de filmes, além de uma série de televisão.
It's rare that a villain emerges as a star from a film. To what do you attribute your ability to do this?
The fact that nearly everyone else in the cast is dead by the end of the film.
Se você gosta deste tipo de conteúdo, não esqueça de deixar seu like, se inscrever no canal e ativar as notificações. Nos vemos no próximo vídeo. Até mais!